Good afternoon, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Arts Commission of Thursday, April 6th, 2022. I'm now calling the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and which commissioner would like to lead us? Would you like to lead us?
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
Please rise. Right hand over your heart, ready, begin. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United Thank you very much. The next order of business is the roll call. Ms. Vertri, will you please do the voice roll call?
Commissioner Derderian, absent. Commissioner Lucia,
Present.
Commissioner Mann,
Present.
Commissioner Ochoa,
Present.
Commissioner Zuckerman,
Present.
Vice Chair Wondercheck, absent. Chair Ashendorf, absent. Let the record show that Commissioner Derderian, Vice Chair Wondercheck, and Chair Ashendorf are not present. Commissioner Zuckerman will be chairing the meeting.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comments. Each member of the public will be given a total of 3 minutes to speak. First, we will take comments from those in the council chambers. Then we will take them from those on Zoom. We will only have one time period for each group. There will be no going back and forth. Members of the public in the chambers, now is the time to speak. Please line up on either side of the aisle.
Working. Hello, my name's Kate. Good to see you all. I'm a resident of Costa Mesa and a working artist, and I was very, very pleased to take part in the recent art crawl experience that was very well organised by Lorette here. I just wanted to come here because I'm very passionate about the arts and how they can change lives in cities. I'm from London originally, so I'm really excited to see how the Costa Mesa city plans to develop its infrastructure for the arts. The art crawl experience I hope to see more of. I was really pleased to also take part in it in association with Orange County Museum of Art. It was really a real highlight for me and my other artist friend, colleague that was taking part in it to do that. The event was just really good, and that's all I wanted to say today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come to the meeting. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak in the room? Okay. Then we will hear from the public via Zoom.
Excuse me, Commissioner?
Yes.
I would like to note that at this moment there are no attendees on Zoom for
Great.
public comment.
Thank you so much. Okay. Public comments are now closed. Now commissioners will have time for questions and comments. Commissioners, if you have any questions of staff or comments on the items that are on the agenda.
This is for items not on the agenda. So this is
Okay.
each of your 3 minutes to just make
These are
whatever
just general
comments. If there's
commissioner
other
comments.
topics or anything, you're welcome to share them now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oops. Hi. I would just like to ask, when is the next art crawl? I was so sad to have missed it. I had a family emergency, and I read about it, and it sounded like so much fun, and I heard they went to your space, and it was wonderful, and I missed going to ACMA, and I really wanted to go and get the trading cards. So is there another one planned for any time in the near future, or is it too soon to think about that?
So we'll answer questions during her staff report. So yeah, so if you have anything else on your 3 minutes, you can still do it. Okay.
Commissioner Ochia?
Hi. As some of you know, I recently lost my mother after a long struggle of Lewy body dementia. And thank you, staff, for expressing compassions and sympathies during this time. But during those long rides back and forth through the desert to my childhood home, I listened to music, I listened to stories, I remembered art and read poems that brought me solace. And it was an important reminder of art's power and its power to make us feel less alone during those times and that we share this universal experience. I'd like to express my gratitude to Ms. Gardner, the staff for your sweet sympathy card, and I'm glad to be sharing this time with you and my colleagues. Thank you.
I'd like to add my condolences to those that you received. Comments? No? Okay. I love your introduction because I decided to share a poem tonight. So, because usually when I speak, I talk about visual art because that is my experience. And as we are in Arts Commission, I read this poem this morning and I loved it, and I thought it would be appropriate to share it in my comments. So it's called Yes, exclamation point, No, exclamation point, by Mary Oliver. How necessary it is to have opinions. I think the spotted trout lilies are satisfied standing a few inches above the earth. I think serenity is not something you just find in the world, like a plum tree holding up its white petals. The violets along the river are opening their blue faces like small dark lanterns. The green mosses, being so many, are as good as brawny. How important it is to walk along, not in haste, but slowly, looking at everything and calling out, yes, no. The swan, for all his pomp, his robes of grass and petals, wants only to be allowed to live on the nameless pond. The catbrier is without fault. The water thrushes, down along the sloppy rocks, are going crazy with happiness. Imagination is better than a sharp instrument. To pay attention, this is our endless and proper work. Okay. So now we'll move on to old business. The recommendation is the approval of the minutes of the March 2nd, 2023 Arts Commission meeting. Would any commissioners like to make any additions or edits to the minutes? Hearing none, I need a motion, please. I cannot make the motion because I was not in attendance.
Even if you weren't in attendance, you can still move and you can still vote. Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
We actually need you to vote.
Okay, great.
And I do believe that Commissioner Wonderchuk is on her way. I would probably say, just for ease of transition, that you continue running the meeting unless you want to defer to her.
No, I'm happy to do it. Okay.
Thank you.
Motion?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Ochia?
You should be able to push your buttons to make the motion, and then another button push to make the second, and then you should be able to vote electronically.
Okay. Looks like Commissioner Mann second.
Okay, great.
We're good?
Commissioner Ochoa, if you may please vote. Motion carries 4-0 to approve the minutes of the March 2nd Arts Commission meeting.
Great. Okay, the next order of business is new business, and the first is art in public places.
Good evening, Arts Commission. So the next item on the agenda is the Art in Public Places Report Review. The report was created by Arts Orange County at the request of city staff. Staff put together a scope of work that was pulled directly from the Arts and Culture Master Plan that was approved by City Council in March of 2021. The action items within goal number 2, as stated in the report, are all directly related to public art, and we are bringing this document forward this evening for the Arts Commission to review and discuss and to prioritize future initiatives regarding public art in Costa Mesa. This item can be brought back to our May Arts Commission meeting if you feel like it warrants more discussion, so just keep that in mind. But if not, we would ask that the Arts Commission approve the report for inclusion into future programs and policies. And before we start our discussion, I would like to give the floor to Rick Stein from Arts Orange County, who will be presenting the document and giving a presentation via PowerPoint. And Pat Gomez is also on Zoom for any questions as part of our discussion, and she's our public art expert. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you get started, I'm sorry, sir, just click your button on presentation, and then the screen in front of you should show the slides as he's going through them. Sorry, Rick.
That's okay. Okay. Thank you, Lorette, and Madam Chair, members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to see you, and I am Rick Stein. I'm President and CEO of Arts Orange County. We're the nonprofit countywide arts council, and we're designated by the Board of Supervisors as the official county arts agency as well. And it's been our pleasure now to be working for several years to assist the city of Costa Mesa in advancing arts and culture. And let me first, however, begin by introducing the team members we have participating. So we have Patrick Bryan, Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. And we also have, as was mentioned, Pat Gomez on Zoom, who is our public art specialist on our team. This process, I have to say, I'm just thrilled to be meeting now for the first time with the Arts Commission, because this was one of the recommendations in the Arts and Culture Master Plan. And while that plan did go before a brand new hybrid commission that was called Parks, Arts, Recreation, and Community Services, I'm very glad now that there is a fully discrete Arts Commission, independent. So we were contracted for that plan, by the way, in December 2017, and with some of the issues related to the pandemic, of course, it took a while before we could present it to the Parks, Arts, Recreation, and Community Services Commission, and then also we presented it to City Council, who placed their stamp of approval on it in March 2021. So the vision of the plan in sum is that the City of the Arts, Costa Mesa, should be a place where creativity and creative people can flourish. Imagination, inspiration, and innovation are held in high regard, and the arts are agreed to be essential to everyone's education. Arts and culture enrich lives and uplift the human spirit, and arts and culture promote civic pride. In 2022, the city implemented 2 important recommendations from the plan: hiring an arts specialist and creating this Arts Commission. And I understand there have been a couple of other, in the staff report, a couple of other items that have been implemented from those recommendations. But in 2022, we were asked to, in June of 2022, we were asked to work with the city on providing some steps towards fulfilling goal number 2, which was the expansion of public art throughout the city. In the original plan, we did have these suggested action plan timetables, which you can see that this part of it right now is maybe just coming in at the end of our recommended year. the steps that you take this evening. So it's not really behind, it's on schedule. And the budget forecast that we provided was to share just some ballpark figures for the existing utility box art program, the temporary art program, and really the other items we're going to require a deeper dive budgetarily, although in our public art plan we're presenting this evening, we do have some ballpark figures for you there too. So where we really begin here is to have definitions so that everybody understands the difference between permanent public art, temporary public art, and who is an artist. And permanent public art, art in public spaces, created by an artist and fabricated with materials and methods with an expected lifespan of 25 years or more. Temporary public art is art in public spaces created by an artist, which is designed to be exhibited for a limited, articulated period of time, typically 5 years or less. And an artist is a person who has established a reputation of artistic excellence in fine arts, including but not limited to visual or performing arts, as judged by peers and experts in the field. And I won't read every word of every item we have on the PowerPoint. I'm sure you'll appreciate that and have read the document already. So moving on, these are the considerations to begin with in terms of criteria for citing public art throughout the Costa Mesa community. And that is consider the opportunities to enhance the aesthetics of locations that need beautification, create equitable distribution of artwork throughout the community. There are locations that have high levels of traffic that really would have a lot of maximizing of community engagement with the works, thematic purposes of the artwork, and balancing the different styles of art that are on display. The public art commissioning process starts with a whole scoping and planning activity, timetable, submission platform options need to be considered, promoting the call for artists, and city staff capacity to manage versus use of a consultant. And then the artist selection part of that process, it has selection criteria that are established based on the aesthetic quality of the past work of the artist, the suitability for the project, scale, materials, etc. Selecting a panel, which would be composed of community members, outside professionals, and arts commissioners, and these might be determined based on the needs of a specific project. The process for finalists, this is something not always taken into consideration when finalists are asked to prepare formal proposals, which might be quite elaborate and involve maquettes or 3D or CAD designs, that they really need to be compensated for that part of the process, and that needs to be budgeted. And then the review and approval process options. You know, will it be decided by the Arts Commission? Will it go to City Council after an Arts Commission approval? And of course, contracting, and the contracts need to reflect the various Artists' Rights Acts on the federal and state level, copyright considerations, scope of work, milestone, and payments. Murals on city property. So we talk about the fact that, you know, we have this commissioning process that I've just described, which really applies to any public art projects that you would take on, maybe with some slight modifications depending on the project. But murals are actually defined, city murals or murals on city property are defined as government speech, and therefore are actually, it's okay for the city to regulate the content and the design. So in this case, murals should be required to have anti-graffiti coating and should be evaluated every 5 years for condition. But murals on private property, which are funded by the property owner without city support, those are subject to First Amendment considerations. The property owner controls the content, not the city. And the city can impose some kinds of regulations related to the lifespan of the mural, the placement and size, materials and methods to ensure, for example, it's not a safety hazard and that it won't be falling apart within a short period of time. So one of the things that you are doing when you consider public art is you are establishing, building, and having to maintain a city art collection. And this might include donations in addition to the works that you commission. And so it makes sense to establish goals for the collection. What are the kinds of works that you wish to include? I mean, you could decide, we'll accept anything. We have broad eclectic tastes. Any theme, any kind of materials would be welcome. Or you may say, well, you know, there's a certain character to Costa Mesa that we want to reflect in our collection. And of course, there are considerations like the capacity to store and exhibit these works that need to be considered, and the ability to maintain and manage them. The donation process requires paperwork that if somebody wants to donate a work of art, they're going to have to complete paperwork that documents ownership, provenance, evaluation and appraisal, condition of the work. And then the criteria needs to be established for acceptance of and deaccessioning of public art. And those recommendations are in the report. Here in Orange County, there are 4 cities that have ordinances specifically requiring the acquisition of and installation of art as part of public and or private development. So you may know that the city of Brea has about 200 works of public art on display. And Buena Park recently instituted a policy, a regulation there. Dana Point is relatively new to it, but Laguna Beach has been at it for a long time, and they have about 125 works of permanent public art. And then there are 4 cities that have non-mandatory ordinances, and so what they've done is strongly encouraged developers to include public art, and where we've seen that fairly effectively implemented is in Huntington Beach and Santa Ana, Newport Beach and Anaheim. Anaheim is brand new to this, and they're approving a public art plan right now. So including public art and public works development projects. So the city's own projects, when it's building buildings or parks, it should be considering the inclusion of public art into those projects. And, you know, there are certain restrictions with respect to the funds used for public works projects, but permanent public art is accepted within the definition of a capital improvement expense for this purpose. Budgeting for public art projects here. So the utility box program you know quite well and is an existing program, and the handbook has just undergone revision. So I won't spend time on that, but it's a very robust program. The temporary public art program proposed in the master plan. This recommended creating a new program of temporary installations of large-scale sculptures, and the idea was that these would be exhibited for 2-year loans and placed at sites inclusive of all of the city's 6 districts. The idea was to ramp it up gradually, and this was primarily because of budgetary concerns at the outset by installing 3 works in year 1 in each of 3 districts, and then adding 3 in year 2 in the remaining districts, and then continuing to rotate the works on expiring loans annually. The approximate annual cost estimated at the time of the Master Arts Plan was $60,000, which included artist honorariums, installation, art consultant, but not staff time, city staff time. We recommend that that number be increased to $75,000 due to inflationary costs, and we have some experience with that. Just so you know, we manage the 14-acre City of Newport Beach sculpture exhibition in Civic Center Park, where there are 20 large-scale sculptures, and just the costs of, for example, pouring new concrete pads and bringing in cranes and forklifts for the installation really has grown astronomically just during the pandemic. So that's a concern. Permanent public art projects also proposed in a master plan, and this is something, you know, that needs obviously a lot more thought and consideration. You know, murals typically will be commissioned from $50,000 to $300,000, depending on the size and the number of murals commissioned. Sculptures can range from $100,000 to $1 million, and in some cases even more, such as the Jeff Koons sculpture in front of the arena in Sacramento, which was something around $5 million, I believe. That, again, the budget includes, the budget projections here include all attendant costs except city staff time. So how do cities fund these things? So it says transit, but it should say transient occupant tax, because visitors are transients, or tourism bid, business improvement district, which is something that was established in Laguna Beach when I worked there. Then public works or private development percent for art policies, where if you're doing a project and it's a $100 million project and you take a percent of that, you've got $1 million to invest, to set aside and invest in creating public art on a permanent basis, either on site there or another location. Quimby funds, which are state funds specific to parks. And there is a new state of California funding program that was approved for art in public places in parks. And to be administered by the California Arts Council, $25 million was budgeted. We're not exactly sure, you know, given the state budget circumstances right now, whether that's going to be clawed back by the governor or legislature, but the intent is there, and it may be that the funds are not made available right away. It could come at a later time. Private funding, of course, not only in the form of donating a specific work of art, but also donating money to create permanent works of art. And then, of course, in Costa Mesa, we've become aware of the fact that there is a cannabis tax and that this has been identified as a potential source of support for the city's arts programs. Finally, there are numerous opportunities for beautification and incorporation of artistic design in functional elements throughout a city, ranging from streetlights and bus shelters to street calming, which the city did have a test on a year or two ago, and pedestrian crosswalks, bicycle lanes, playgrounds, fitness stations, and utility boxes, which you're already quite familiar with. So that's the end of the formal presentation, and then we're happy to take any questions. Probably anything technical, I will probably ask Pat Gomez to jump in on and share her thoughts. But I think that the important thing now will be for you to consider next steps and priorities.
Thank you. Are there questions from the commissioners? Okay, I have a few.
I just have to say good evening, Commissioner Wondercheck. How are you?
So the budget adjustment up for inflation, I think makes sense. Can you give some additional detail on the budget. I'm always the one that asks the budget questions. And, what are the percentages, for example, for project management or for the consulting fees, and what are the costs for artist honorariums, and what are the costs for production? And just one other question, how is it proposed to compensate the artists in terms of fair market value of their artwork versus paying for materials?
Yes. So on the temporary art, I can say that based on our experience in Newport Beach and colleagues in the field around the state who we talk with and have similar temporary rotating sculpture programs, that the fees to artists can range from, as little as $2,000 on up to, in one particular locale, $30,000, depending on the scale of the work and notoriety of the artist. Those are not necessarily always open calls. Some of those are curated situations. But it really, much of it depends, the infrastructure part of it really depends on what is needed. That if works are installed in locations, for example, that are already paved, and the works simply need to be fastened there, as opposed to, excavating and creating and pouring pads, there's a lot of savings there. The consultant's fee, I don't know. Pat, maybe you'd like to weigh in on kind of customary percentages?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in general, when we're talking about consulting fees, it's a 20% of budget.
Okay, so
But I mean, if you want, I can break down more when you're talking about the permanent commissioned work. I'm happy to go through all of that budget breakdown.
that would be great. But let me just add one other thing. So there are insurance costs that artists bear, as well as transportation, and then the installation costs, not just the site preparation that I was talking about before, but things like cranes and forklifts and having experienced art handling crews. That is probably the biggest expense right there. Yeah. Okay, Pat.
Sure. And when I'm talking about consultants, I mean, generally, if you have a staff that's overseeing the project, obviously you're not working with a consultant. Usually when we see the work of consultants with the permanent work, it's if you're talking about a private development situation where then the developer would work with a consultant to create an artwork or, something that's a side type of a project. But generally, when you're talking about the creation of public art or commissioning of public art as part of a city or municipal project, the budget is going to be usually about 1% of the project, overall construction project. So there's going to be a wide range of budgets in terms of what you're going to be able to see happen at any particular location. That breakdown, generally, you're going to want to pull aside a little percentage, maybe 10 to 20, depending upon the size and complexity that's anticipated for contingency. Then you're going to be looking at an approximately a 20% as just the artist's design fee. Then you're going to be looking at another percentage, which is fabrication and installation. Usually the artist has that all within their contract, so that their contract is actually design, fabrication, installation. So it would be all inclusive, and they would need to work to come up with their budgets, estimates, and so forth for their subs, which would be the ones who are doing fabrication. Generally, it's not the artist, depending on the type of work it is. And then, of course, the cost of installation and so forth. And the other budgetary items that you'd want to think of within your overall budget are the cost of proposals. Generally, in the selection of the artist, you're going to have an initial call, which is going to be a request for qualifications initially, where artists are just providing you their slides, images, background on work they've already completed. From that, there would be the selection panel would identify approximately 3 finalists. Those finalists would then be tasked with creating a proposal. That at that point, there would be a fee for those proposals to be developed. And again, that's going to have have a range based on the overall budget of the project and the complexity of the proposal that's being requested.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Ochia.
Ochoa,
I'm sorry, Ochoa.
no worries. I guess my question's a little dreamy, a little wild, so I'm going to throw it out there. But on page 52, in its definition of public art, I was wondering, and this might be a question for you, Mr. Stein, or Ms. Gomez, or any of my colleagues, but I was wondering if there's a possibility for ephemeral public art, art that cannot be embodied in a lasting material object that's participatory or immaterial.
I'll just make a couple of introductory comments on that. I'll let Pat speak further. But over the past probably about 20 years, there has been a broadening of a definition of what public art constitutes. And particularly the move towards more temporary public art is part of that, but it is also the whole concept of creative placemaking. And that goes well beyond visual arts. It goes into performing arts, it goes into festivals. It definitely is something to be considered. So, to have a robust community engaging experience program is certainly one embodiment of public art. Pat, would you like to add to that?
Just that I absolutely agree. So the idea of work that is temporary, whether it's in the form of performance, something that's visual, a combination of things, is absolutely considered under the umbrella of public art. When I talk about, commissioning works on a permanent basis, generally that is going to come into play when it's something that's done in tandem with a public works construction project. And the reason that I say that, and again, that's going to depend on the type of funding that is funding that actual construction project. So for example, if there's some kind of a library that's being built, depending upon the source of funds for that library, those sorts of funds very often have restrictions as to how those funds can be used. It is not uncommon for a source of funds to be restricted to capital improvements. If that's the case, then you're going to be looking at permanent art placemaking within that site. It's not going to be a situation where you're going to have, a temporary or some type of other programming that's going to easily be inserted with that funding. But if the funding is a little broader, and it doesn't have those kinds of restrictions, then absolutely, you can go into that situation with with temporary works, with permanent works, with any one of a number of avenues of public art.
Right, and Pat, the grand performances in Los Angeles was such kind of from early conception, that development project took a different approach. I think you're familiar with it.
Yeah, that one, there was the creation of a space or an infrastructure, which is an interesting thing to talk about, because a lot of times people may think of permanent public art, they might think of a statue or something of that's, of a traditional form. That is not necessarily the case whatsoever. I mean, actual permanent public art can be very broad. It can take many forms. It's not, you're not necessarily talking about statues or fountains, although you could. But in that instance, there was this creation of a plaza with a performance space. And so that space was able to be built where there was this ongoing programming. Now the programming is coming from different types of funding, because there's actually a nonprofit created to activate that space with ongoing programming. But the construction of the space, all of the facilities and amenities associated with that was absolutely something that could be allowable within that requirement. It actually, now I'm thinking about it, that I think was a private space. So it was even broader. So that would have had any, some of that programming could have gone into it as well.
I
mean, that's
actually
the
think
thing.
too, Pat, that the developer had, as part of the development agreement, had responsibility for providing ongoing funding at a certain level to sustain programming in that space as
That
well.
very well could be,
Yeah.
because it was a private development. So
Yeah.
with private development, it's wide open.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think the next thing that we want to do is to discuss among the commissioners the initiatives and to prioritize them.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation, Rick.
Thank you, Heidi, and thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to work with you. If any further questions come up as a result of the meeting, staff will let us know, and we'll be happy to respond. So, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Okay, so within the initiatives that are part of the plan, now we have an opportunity for discussion on what the priorities of the commission are.
Yes, so what we'll do is we have 6 action items that were from the Arts and Culture Master Plan. And we kind of would like to know as staff, like what are priorities from the Arts Commission, like what you think is the most important, kind of based on the information that was presented by Rick, and then what's in the master plan, what we have funding for, maybe, something we can think about in the future to project, our intentions. So, yeah.
Great. Would you do us the service of just reading out the 6 initiatives, and then we can use that as the framework for the discussion?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
So for goal number 2, the Arts and Culture Master Plan, action 2.1 is to continue the city-operated program of temporary utility box art, which affords opportunities to local artists, established emerging, to create images that offer the community beautification. Review additional sites that are suitable for such installations, including wayfinding signage. Action 2.2 is develop a plan for more ambitious temporary and permanent public art, including the identification of potential locations around the city, creation of policies with respect to selection and acquisition of artworks, and determination of the funding sources to be used. Action 2.3 is temporary art programs, and I'm not going to read all that. So basically to create a new program of temporary installations of large-scale sculptures. And it's kind of what Rick Stein mentioned in his presentation. So, it could start with just 2-year loans, and it can be ramped up year by year. Action 2.4 is the city may consider adopting a policy mandating fees for public art from new development projects. And then action 2.5, create a new program of permanent public art and implement the process of selecting and installing a first work. And then action 2.6 is to incorporate imaginative design in all of the city's functional elements and fixtures.
Thank you so much. I think this is the exciting part of serving on this commission, is getting to talk about these priorities. So I'm happy to call on the commissioners in whatever order they would like to speak.
I mean, this is all very exciting. I think probably adopting policies for funding is crucial at this point. and I think from there we can start implementing, the public art projects and
Thank you. Yep.
Laura, can you talk a little bit about the current funding? Because we are going through the budget process, and included in that budget process is the request for funding for year 3 projects. So talk a little about what's happening in year 3, at least that we'll be requesting.
Yes, so we have, some programs that are carrying forward as current programs that we're currently working on. So we have the utility box program. We have funds for Art Venture. We are asking for the $60,000 for the temporary loan sculptures that was mentioned in the presentation. And then I'm trying to think, what else did we did ask for more grant funding, but for public art specifically, the only funding specifically is going to be the utility box program and then the $60,000 for the temporary loan sculptures.
So
Yes.
with the temporary loan structures, again, you said the budget for that is $60,000. How many temporary structures will we receive for that amount?
I think that's negotiable. So we'll kind of make a plan of, location and that'll kind of decide a lot of things for us. And we are in the budget process now, so we're asking, but there's no, definitive plan yet for what our budget will be for 2023-24. Okay. So I know we have meetings coming up for that soon.
I was wondering, when is the cannabis tax take effect, and has that been established as that is a definite go-to, or that will definitely be given to the arts, a percentage of that tax?
Yes, it's currently happening. They've approved, I believe the Planning Division of the Planning Commission has approved 15 or 16 different cannabis business retail permits. I only think of 2 or 3 of them are currently operating. The first one that started operating, I think we were receiving some tax revenue in the month of December. So it's starting to finally accumulate. We did have about 1.5 years, almost 2 years worth of kind of getting us into the hole. We were supplementing that funding with general fund, but then it'll backfill it later. So we have some catching up to do, but it is starting, and the revenue is coming in currently.
Hi, my comment is in regards to prioritization. I noticed in the agenda report that it mentions that, staff has already received multiple inquiries regarding potential public art projects, including how to donate art to the city. So if staff has already received those inquiries about donations, I think it would make sense to put that towards the higher end of the priority list.
Yeah, great point.
I might add that some of the funding related, that action item is probably going to be the most time consuming. I know, establishing funding for all of these things is important, but there will be regular discussions with the finance director, the planning department, how that money would come in, and that's definitely something that will need council approval. So that is one of the more challenging ones, but just to note that for your consideration.
Yeah, so I'd like to follow up on Commissioner Lucia's comment. And I think that it would be great to allocate some time at a future meeting with the information provided by the staff to talk about criteria for the city of Costa Mesa's collection. So before we start to spend any money or even invite any proposals for either temporary or permanent works, I think it would be great to already have a collection strategy. And then I think it's equally important to be able to decide what to say yes to, but also what to say no to. So I would indicate that as a top priority. I would also say that if, for example, we were budgeted $60,000 that could be allocated for temporary sculpture, we might break some of that off and start to use it towards the structure to put permanent art in place, because the time frame for a permanent piece versus a temporary piece and how long it takes to commission something as opposed to just selecting something and putting it in place would allow us to start to kind of bank future works. And I'm also a huge advocate of the Percent for Art program. And so I'd love to see the staff allocate time towards putting together a Percent for Art program and to potentially have the Art Commission advocate to the city council or whoever is appropriate to start to socialize that idea amongst developers in the city.
On the tax program or our current, funding source, it is exciting that it's finally coming in and we're starting to, to see it build up a bit. If it does better than expected, that can be additional funding that is dedicated towards Art Commission related efforts. If we're able to get started with the policy and kind of narrow those things down, and, at least for the temporary art programs, if we find that there's additional funding, we will also be working with the commission. We'll probably get started in November of next year, or of this year, looking at what the commission sees as priorities for the next year of the master plan. So we have taken things out of order. One of the most important things, no offense to Rick, was, to get the art specialist on board, which was called out in year 2. So we took that one out of order so that, if the commission sees other priorities and the funding is available, we might be able to modify those. So we do want the commission to feel engaged in the budget process with the limited funding that we do have. But if it is more than expected, then maybe that gives more flexibility into pursuing other priorities.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to create, I loved your comments of like, well, this is a big question, right? Like big thinking. And I think we want to start big and to really think about, what are big, BHAGs, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals. And, to figure out, what we want Costa Mesa to be known for. And, to then have a really strong mission and vision around public art in Costa Mesa, and then be able to not just be a receptacle, right, of things that people, don't have room for anymore or whatnot, but to be super clear on, what our criteria for acceptance is and what, what we want to say to our community about the value of art and culture.
I would like to add, with being my limited arts background, I think when Lorette came to us, she far exceeded the art experience I had. But speaking on behalf of the city, there's a huge interest in the arts, but the city's very new to this. So a lot of the stuff that's in this policy is kind of groundbreaking, and it might take multiple conversations before people kind of understand what it means. So, if you do have opportunities to speak with the city council members, to talk about some of the things that you feel are interests to the commission or you as individual commissioners, I think that's going to start laying the groundwork. They may have questions, and I would love to take advantage of the experience of each of you as commissioners to kind of guide that process, whether it be formally at a meeting or, informally at some of the other opportunities that you may have with our elected officials. So again, we're new to this. We call ourselves the City of the Arts. There's a lot of great artists and art opportunities in our city. But from the staff's perspective, from the council's perspective, even the city manager's office, there's still a lot of work to do. We have a couple of exciting art opportunities that Lorette's been working on that are hopefully going to create templates for agreements and for, contracts with artists, things that we haven't had in place before. Once we have the templates ready, it'll help expedite that process. So, we're making progress. It's a little slow, I know. She and I talk regularly, like we're coming along, but it is a very exciting time, and we appreciate your attention and your excitement about this because we want it to be right. We don't want to rush through it, but the sooner we can start focusing on these priorities, it'll really help us turn all of these thoughts and ideas into actual community benefit.
So 2 questions, and I know that the city attorney is not here or who's usually advising, so two questions about that. Because the first thought that I had when Rick was going through the presentation about what the policies are for other cities in Orange County and who has a percent for our program and who has a sort of implied but not mandated. I thought it might be interesting if we could do a field trip, maybe not just the Art Commission, but maybe some of the elected officials to be able to visit some of these cities and see, who do we think has done it well and, what works well about what they do and, who maybe we felt like we could learn something from about what we might want to do differently. But are we allowed to go to things together?
We would not be able to go as a group unless there, was a variety of things that would have to be put in place.
Okay.
Probably not likely. You can break up into smaller groups, if it's staff coordinated kind of field trip type things, as long as it's less than quorum, so 3 or less, that can definitely be arranged. I'm not sure availability of each of you, in terms of, weekdays, afternoons, evenings. It's definitely something I think we can work out, and, I think Lorette, Ashley can kind of put together. If there's suggestions that you have, you want to, send them to staff offline, that's fine too, about, things that you would like to see or experiences you've had that you think we should focus on. I think it's always good to see what's going on in other cities, not that we have to copy them. Was that your question about from the city attorney about how many can go and stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
We can invite a council member or two. I'm not sure how many of you, or if you're in communication with them. I know they all have city emails, so you're welcome to email them. A lot of them give out their cell numbers. I don't like to give out their cell numbers, but yeah.
And so just a follow-up question on that as well. Individually, we're allowed to speak to the council members or the mayor with our opinions about this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, the Brown Act issues come with you talking about commission business with each other. And, you shouldn't have a group of 4 or more. Even a group of 3, if you're talking about city business, we would most likely get into more of an ad hoc committee type discussion. There's been a lot of discussion on that recently here within the city and committees, how it applies to committees more. But you definitely, engage with council members about what's going on our commission on a one-to-one basis. Absolutely.
I'm on the mayor's podcast tomorrow, and I'm gonna introduce this idea.
I love that idea. I think a great stop on the research trip would be the sculpture exhibition at Newport Beach Civic Center Park, managed by Arts OC, as I mentioned earlier. I have a question more in this vein of an ordinance idea that some of these other cities have adopted. What would be the recommendation? What can the commission do in exploring this or encouraging the city council to consider something like this besides just taking them on a field trip?
You're talking more specifically about the...
action item 2.4. Yeah.
Okay. I think preliminary discussions at this point, so it's in their periphery. I know Lorette has some information, whether it be through Arts OC or stuff she's, gathered on her own. If you know of other jurisdictions that may have it, from previous areas, previous cities or, jurisdictions that you've worked in and you want to send it to us or say, hey, so-and-so city had a really good policy, you can send that to us at any time and, we can include that in the discussion. I think based on the number of cities that were included as comparisons in the original master plan, cities just do things completely different. And, that doesn't mean that we're going to follow any one city unless we find it to be great. But there's the temperature of the council at the time that we present it is, going to be better if they know about it prior to. So starting to lay the groundwork now would be great. We do have a commitment to council to do like an annual report of what the commission's been working on. Most likely that would not happen until 2024. After we've completed the full 2023 year. That's one document where the commission will get to present that annual report to the council and talk about everything that you want to share. And that's really going to be on the commissioners to do that presentation. So staff will work with you, but we want it to be heavily engaged by the commissioners.
Those are great recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. Was I supposed to ask for a motion to discuss the art in public places presentation?
Typically, we would make sure we ask for public comment. So if, you can, there's no decisions made yet, you're not asking for motion or anything yet. Typically, after the commissioners ask most of their questions, we would open it up to the public, whether it be in, and you know that part.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Yes.
Sorry, I have one more. So I went over the very thick little writing packet, and it's great, and it's some legalese. It's like very dense, and I was wondering I understand that a lot of that will be necessary for big installations or big pieces of art that we want to show off in the city and do this and that, but for some smaller types, are we going to have a more maybe streamlined or easy way, maybe we could make it for artists maybe to submit their work? It just seemed like I was reading it and I was, going, wow, there's so much stuff in here. And I know there's separate things for everything. I mean, there's a lot. That packet is full of a lot of information. And it just seems like it's going to take a little while to kind of get through all of what that means. Is that what you meant also by having us talk to the city council and other people about everything that was in that packet, which I know are part of these action plans here?
I think more just advocacy for the pending policy and the priorities than, the actual technical parts of the documents.
And that packet is just all the technical stuff, right?
Portions of it, but
Yes, so it's just kind of the meat from those action items. It's kind of laying out the pieces, like if we decide to go for like one of the initiatives, like our top priority, there's pieces of that plan that I would personally use to make policy for the initiative we're working on. So I've already kind of started looking at this, and there would definitely be different kind of, as Director Mentor mentioned, like different kinds of templates for contracts for different projects. So I definitely wouldn't make someone fill out a permanent public art project contract for something that's like a temporary work of art that's not as involved. Yeah.
Yeah. And are we going to see a lot of these contracts and be able to see all of what we're talking about, obviously, before? That would be the discussion that the council would have before we'd agree or want to put something out in public, correct?
Not necessarily, the commission wouldn't review the contracts, really. It's more, once we get into creating the panels, the review panels, those types of groups, yes, there will be dialogue on that here at the commission level, but it wouldn't be about approving contracts or necessarily the terms, but setting the framework.
Yeah, I would also add that, it's more of, Rick Stein mentioned those RFQs, request for qualifications and request for proposals. So the Arts Commission may weigh in on some of those processes. So when artists submit proposals, okay, we'll bring them to the Arts Commission for review to see which one, might work for the project.
Is there an issue if any of us knows any of these artists that is going to be asking for any of that?
That's a great question, and the potential for conflict of interest is something that we would just ask you to make sure that you review any item like that as before the meeting, in case you have to recuse yourself. For the issue of like utility boxes, where we've approved multiple ones in a night, you can recuse yourself from voting on the third one listed because I don't think friends with is an issue. Usually it's related to more nepotism and, things like that. Or, if it's a financial interest of some sort, I'm an investor in a business or I work there, if there's any type of financial exchange, that's what we want to be careful of. So, it's the sooner we know, the sooner we can ask and make sure that everybody's clean. So, you don't get anyone into trouble, including yourselves. But definitely when it comes to contracts and artists, if there's an artist that you have a relationship with financially or anything like that, you want to recuse yourself from that and let us know early so we make sure that we take that into consideration.
Okay, great. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this topic? Is there anyone on Zoom?
There are currently no members on Zoom.
Okay.
We need you to invite your friends and colleagues and all that. We want to fill up the chambers for important discussions like this. We need input from artists in our community, patrons of the arts. We want to build a fan base is what we want to do.
Yeah, I think that the conversation around criteria for setting the collection is something that would be really wonderful to do some crowdsourcing around prior to bringing it to the commission. And it could likely be an interestingly spirited conversation. Okay, so now can we have a motion, please, as it is the recommendation of the staff that we approve the Art in Public Places report for inclusion in future programs and policies?
I move to approve.
Thank you. And a second, please.
I second.
Thank you. And now we'll vote.
Motion carries 5-0 to approve the Art and Public Policies and Public Places report.
Thank you.
Did we approve recommendation 1 and create a prioritization list? Recommendation 1 says, review and discuss the art and public places to prioritize. Are we not creating a list tonight? Oh, did it get motioned and approved? Okay.
No, I did the second one because I didn't know, because it seemed like we had a discussion, but it didn't seem like we were ready to make a list.
Clearly, we're still sorting it out. Too, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Would it benefit staff for us to vote on putting together a list in order tonight? You feel
I
like
think
you
we're
got
okay.
enough direction?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so then the next order of business is monthly reports, arts and culture staff report, please.
Okay, good evening. Is it showing? Okay. So the first item on my report is the art crawl experience. I just wanted to personally thank Kate Ryan for her comments about the art crawl. She was such a gracious host for the event and allowing the community into her home studio to share her artwork and her process. And also I just wanted to say she does have a solo show up in the She They Gallery in Santa Ana, and it's up until April 23rd. Kate had her opening reception as part of the Santa Ana Art Walk on April 1st, so I got to go see her work. It's beautiful. Overall, the event went really smoothly, and surveys came back with some positive reviews. I also want to say thank you to Gabrielle McLean, our second artist, for giving such a great studio tour and for facilitating an engaging color wheel activity. And I also want to acknowledge the Orange County Museum of Art staff for being available and willing to share details about how exhibitions are chosen and installed. Courtney and Amanda shared some great stories about the art and the people who make it from the museum, which we all really appreciated it. And so thank you so much to Amanda Seidler and Courtney Finn for that. And to answer Commissioner Mann's kind of earlier question, I am planning the next art crawl. I don't have any definitive details yet, but I'm hoping it should be kind of just as exciting and fun and different. So more on that soon. The arts grants. So update to the arts grants. I currently have 7 applications, but 5 that are complete and ready for review. So I've emailed potential panel members, and I think we'll have enough interest to have 4 to 5 panelists to review each grant. So thank you to all the arts commissioners who've already expressed interest in volunteering to assist with these evaluations. A lot of you volunteered, and I really appreciate it. It was nice to see, so thank you. I'll be sending out the final list of panelists tomorrow or early next week, along with instructions on how to review the applications. We'll be evaluating all the applications virtually via email, so I'll send a scoring rubric and some directions on how to. And my goal is to bring back a funding plan in May or June and hopefully have some grantees come to the Arts Commission to present so we can fill the room a little bit. And the Utility Box Art Program, one of our most recent wraps has been completed and is showcasing the artwork of Craig Barker. So thank you to Craig for sharing his artwork with the City of Costa Mesa. We really appreciate it, always. And we also have a few others that have been completed but didn't make it in this report on time. So we have Orange Coast College and Orange OC Fair boxes have been installed as well, and I'll make sure to highlight those next month so you can see them. They're really neat too. And then also, I just wanted to give one quick announcement as part of kind of my staff comments, I guess. I wanted to encourage you all to let artists know that Arts OC is administering, I can never say that word, Individual Artist Fellowship grant funding from the California Arts Council. So they are the state local partner and will manage this program for Imperial, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and San Diego counties. So if you know any artists who would like funding for being a working artist, this is the grant for them, and it's unrestricted funds. And so the deadline to apply is April 14th. So I know if you go to the Arts OC's homepage, there's a bunch of information about that there. So I would encourage you all to take a look if you know anyone. And that should do it. That's the staff monthly report. Thank you so much.
Just a question on that. Do you know what the grant amounts are?
I think, so there's 3 levels for different, levels of artists. And I think the first one is 5,000, the second is 10, and the third is 50,000, I think. So they're substantial. They're nice grant amounts.
Thank you for that report. Fantastic. Are there any questions from the commission on the arts and culture staff report?
I'm not going to ask a question because I know what the report says, but I just wanted to thank Lorette and also the other staff that worked. I was very fortunate to be able to go to the art crawl, my first art crawl ever. It was, I think, the most engaging part for me was just hearing the artists talk. I think, and hearing their passion, it was just amazing. So I thought it was a great experience, and kudos to Lorette for everything she did to set it up, and our part-time staff that were just charming. I mean, wow, it was a great experience all the way around. So thank you to ACMA for hosting, but I'm really happy to have been a part of the first ever ACMA. We have photographic evidence of that too. So, but thank you.
I also had a wonderful time at the art crawl. Thank you, Laurette. Thank you, staff. Thank you, ACMA, for hosting. As someone who did a bit of collections management in my past profession, it was wonderful to kind of nerd out with Amanda and Courtney.
Yes, we have, yeah, we like nerds. Yeah, art nerds in particular. Yeah. Great. Okay. Are there any additional commissioner comments or any additional staff comments? Yes.
I do have a staff comment. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no.
No, you.
Okay. I'm wondering in future grant cycles if we can kind of implement a more robust messaging service or system to kind of get the word out to get more applicants. I know in the past we've discussed having our own separate IG account, which I believe Santa Ana and Los Angeles have.
Yeah, can we ask for a report back at the next meeting about that, about different strategies and also maybe some goal setting, like what would be a realistic number of applications that, we would aspire towards? So again, just continuing to push to kind of raise the bar, for everything, have it be aspirational.
Yeah, I've been through that. I've managed a grant program, and the more money, the more applications you get, the more people you turn away. So as you increase your applications, you hope that you increase the amount of funding that's available for it. So any outreach opportunities that the commissioners want to share, I think the creation of an Instagram account or whatever, I think that's been discussed, and the city has some policies on that. So we can report back on that. As for my comments, I just wanted to, it went away. We have, we're trying to, a little bit of history. Back in 2019, California Senate declared April as Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month. We're hoping that the council will allow us to bring forward a proclamation at the April 18th meeting. recognizing April as Arts, Culture and Creativity Month. If it's approved, we would be asking you as commissioners to show up at the beginning of that meeting to represent, arts in our community and accept the proclamation. We might ask the chair to say a few words, if it does get approved, but having all of you in attendance at that meeting would be great. Once we know it's confirmed, we'll get the information out to you. I don't want to be premature, but while we have the audience, I want to make sure you're all aware. It'd be great to get a photo op with the council and the mayor and really start that team building between you and them. So April 18th, it'd be at 6 o'clock right here in the chambers. It's one of the first things on the agenda. So as soon as that report is over, you're free to go or listen to a bunch of talk on budget and administrative fun things and stay till the end because we might be talking about the flying field.
Commissioner, thank you very much. Commissioner Lucia.
Oh, my comment was just back about the grant applications. I was thinking a potential group to reach out to would be previous participants of the utility box art program. And maybe anyone, once we have all these future art crawls, anyone in the past who had been an artist who was featured, they might be interested in applying for the grant program.
Great. Any other commissioner comments?
Just had a quick question. With the arts grants, it's not just art, it's arts in general, right? So reaching out to different performing arts organizations that serve youth or what have you would qualify for this as well, I'm assuming. Correct. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Then, yeah, I will think of other places to submit this to and get the word out. But again, we have 2 weeks for the. It's been extended for 2 weeks, is what you
I
stated?
have it open until tomorrow.
Okay.
There's no necessarily hard and fast rule for closing it, just because this is the first one. I can be more flexible. If that's a recommendation, I'm happy to leave it open.
I would recommend just what you had shared before, if it could at least be open for 2 more weeks.
Sure, no problem. I can do that.
Thank you.
Can you just, so we can share this on our own social media, right? Like to drive traffic or to encourage applications for grants?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And so should we tag the city of Costa Mesa? What should we do to encourage people? Because I'm happy to do that tonight.
Yes, you can definitely tag the Costa Mesa social media pages. I think however you want to do it, if, email blast or whatever, you can do that too. I think, Lorette, one of the the takeover charges from the arts committee was to, build up a database of, arts related, whether it be for volunteerism or, for artists, to build up a database that we can share it with. So you're always welcome to share contacts with her as well.
Fantastic. Okay.
On that note, just because you brought up social media, what I wouldn't do as commissioners is chat about things on your social media pages that could be on the agenda. So to advertise is fine, but I wouldn't get into, starting a thread with which you're communicating with each other on your social media pages. I think it's one thing to like things, another thing to establish a commentary.
Okay. If there are no other comments, then I will now adjourn the meeting to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is May 4th.
But before you sign off, I just want to thank you, Commissioner, for taking charge and running a splendid meeting. So you're welcome to fill in any time on.
Thank you for everyone's grace. We are adjourning at 7:19, and this is going to be my favorite part. Thank you.